The sun was shining bright over the small meadow where the wedding had just taken place. Friends and family were still cheering, clapping, and wiping away tears of joy as Emily and Thomas walked hand in hand down the aisle. The bride wore a white dress with soft lace at the edges, and she held a bouquet of sunflowers and pink roses. Her smile was wide and pure, and her golden hair danced in the wind. Thomas, dressed in a beige suit, looked at her with love in his eyes, feeling like the luckiest man in the world. Their wedding had been planned for almost a year, and everything had gone perfectly, or so they thought. They had chosen a small outdoor ceremony surrounded by trees and fresh flowers, with only close friends and family invited. It felt personal, special, and exactly the way they had dreamed. After the ceremony, they had their pictures taken, laughed with their guests, and shared their first dance under string lights. Everything seemed normal, full of love and happiness. The day ended with guests sending them off to their honeymoon in a car decorated with ribbons and tin cans that clattered as they drove off into the night. They were headed to a quiet resort by the coast, far from their busy city life. It was meant to be a peaceful start to their marriage. The resort was beautiful, with white sand beaches, small villas, and ocean views from every window. The couple spent their first day walking along the beach, eating seafood, and sipping drinks by the pool. Emily was glowing with joy, and Thomas couldn't stop taking pictures of her. They laughed, talked, and dreamed about the future. But on the second morning, everything changed. Thomas woke up early to find the other side of the bed empty. At first, he thought Emily had gone for a walk or maybe to get breakfast, but hours passed and there was no sign of her. He called her phone, but it went straight to voicemail. He asked the hotel staff, but no one had seen her since the evening before. Fear started to take over. Thomas checked every part of the resort, the beach, the pool, the cafe, but Emily was nowhere to be found. By nightfall, the police were called. They searched the area and questioned the hotel staff and guests. Some people remembered seeing her, others didn't. No one had seen or heard anything unusual. It was like she had vanished into thin air. Thomas was heartbroken and confused. How could someone disappear so quickly, especially in such a safe and quiet place? The next few days were a blur of questions, worry, and empty waiting. Thomas stayed at the resort, hoping for any news. He barely ate or slept. He went through every photo and video they had taken on the trip, looking for a clue, something, anything that could explain where Emily had gone. One night, as he sat alone in their villa, Thomas opened a folder of their wedding photos. He wasn't sure why. Maybe to feel close to her, maybe to remind himself that she had been real and happy just days ago. As he scrolled through the pictures, his eyes filled with tears. Then, one photo caught his attention. It was a wide shot of them walking down the aisle, smiling and holding hands. The guests in the background were clapping and cheering. But something about the photo made him pause. There was a man in the crowd, standing slightly apart from the rest. His face looked too serious, too focused. Unlike everyone else, he wasn't smiling. He was staring straight at Emily. Thomas zoomed in on the photo, his hands shaking. He didn't recognize the man. He wore a blue suit, and he stood stiffly while everyone else clapped. There was something cold in his eyes, something that didn't belong at a joyful wedding. Thomas had seen that face before, but he couldn't remember where. A strange feeling crept into his chest, something between fear and realization. He didn't know yet what it meant, but suddenly the wedding photo didn't feel like a happy memory. It felt like a warning he had missed. Thomas couldn't sleep that night. His mind kept going back to the photo. The man in the blue suit. He didn't belong. Thomas was sure of it now. He stayed up for hours, zooming in and out of the picture, staring at every detail. Who was this man? Why had he come to the wedding? Emily and Thomas had only invited close friends and family. They had made the guest list together. Thomas was sure he had never seen that man before, and he was almost certain Emily hadn't either. But the look on the man's face, it was haunting. He wasn't clapping. He wasn't smiling. He looked focused, like he had a plan, like he was there for a reason that had nothing to do with love or happiness. The next morning, Thomas printed out the photo and took it to the police. At first, the officer on duty looked at it with polite interest, but as Thomas explained what had happened, the sudden disappearance, the unknown man at the wedding. The officer's expression changed. He called a detective, and soon Thomas was sitting in a small room explaining everything all over again. The detective studied the photo carefully. He agreed the man's presence was strange. Most guests were clapping or smiling, but this man looked like he was watching Emily very closely. The detective asked for a full list of wedding guests and their photos, just to be sure. Thomas gave him everything. He also shared the video footage from the wedding, which had been recorded by a family friend. They all watched the moment when Emily and Thomas walked down the aisle. The man in the blue suit was standing still in the back row. No one talked to him. No one even looked at him. It was like he was invisible to everyone, except Thomas, now that it was too late. When the detective tried to identify him through facial recognition, they found nothing. No match. No name. It was like the man didn't exist. That made things even worse. Thomas started questioning everyone he knew. He called Emily's friends her co-workers, even her old teachers, asking if they recognized the man in the photo. No one did. He even went through old family albums, looking for anyone who might match. Still nothing. It was frustrating and frightening. Every dead end made Thomas feel more hopeless. But he didn't give up. He couldn't. Emily was out there somewhere, and this man, whoever he was, had something to do with her disappearance. Then, one evening, Thomas got a call from Emily's mother. She had been thinking hard about the photo ever since Thomas had shown it to her. "I'm not sure," she said, "but he looks like someone from my past. A long time ago." She explained that when Emily was very young, maybe 2 or 3 years old, there had been a man who showed up at her daycare and claimed to be her uncle. He said he was there to pick her up, but the daycare workers didn't recognize him. They refused to let him take her. He left angry and was never seen again. Emily's mother had filed a report at the time, but nothing ever came of it. There had been no proof, and the man had vanished. Over time, she had tried to forget about it. Thomas listened carefully. Could that man have come back? All these years later? But why? What did he want with Emily? If he had been watching her for so long, how had no one noticed? It all felt too strange to be real. Still, the idea that this mystery man had tried to take Emily once before made everything much more serious. The detective agreed. If this was the same person, then Emily might have been targeted. Her disappearance wasn't random. It was planned. With this new information, the police reopened the case from the daycare incident. They searched the old files, looked for witness reports, and tried to build a connection. Thomas hoped this would finally lead to something. But days passed, and there was still no word from Emily. Her phone stayed off. No one had used her credit cards. She was simply gone, like a shadow in the wind. And all Thomas could do was wait, and hope that whatever the man in the blue suit had planned hadn't already happened. The days stretched into weeks, and Thomas felt like he was losing his mind. He couldn't focus on anything except finding Emily. He had stopped working, barely ate, and didn't talk much to anyone. His world had become quiet and heavy, filled with fear and unanswered questions. Every time his phone rang, his heart jumped, hoping it would be Emily or the police with good news. But it was always another dead end. Still, he didn't stop searching. He kept visiting the police station, sharing ideas, asking questions. He even posted the wedding photo online, hoping that someone somewhere might recognize a man in the blue suit. The post went viral. Thousands of people shared it. Some claimed to know the man, but none of the tips led to anything real. Still, one message stood out. It came from a woman named Clara, who lived in a town 3 hours away. She sent Thomas a short message. "I saw this man outside my daughter's school last month. He was watching the children, but didn't speak to anyone. I thought it was strange, but I didn't report it. I'm sorry." Thomas immediately told the police. Clara's school had security cameras, and when they checked the footage, they found him standing under a tree near the schoolyard, staring through the fence. Same suit, same face. It was definitely him. This confirmed what everyone feared. The man had been watching women or children for some time. But what was he waiting for? What did he want? The detective working the case believed they were dealing with someone who had planned this for years. He was careful, quiet, and clever. He didn't leave a trail. But Clara's tip gave them hope. They started checking other schools and public places, reviewing surveillance footage from nearby towns. It was slow work, but it felt like they were finally getting closer. Meanwhile, Thomas started digging deeper into Emily's past. He talked to her father, her cousins, anyone who had known her as a child. One evening, while looking through old photo albums at her grandmother's house, he found something strange. It was a photo of Emily at her 3rd birthday party. She was blowing out candles, and standing behind her was a man with his hand on her shoulder. The photo was blurry, but Thomas froze when he saw the face. It was him, the same man in the blue suit, except now he was younger and he had a beard. Still, the eyes were the same, cold, focused, watching Emily. Thomas took the photo straight to the police. They scanned it and compared it to the wedding photo. The software confirmed a match. This man had been near Emily more than 20 years ago. Somehow, he had found her again. The question was, how? Why? And what had he done with her now? The detective told Thomas something chilling. This man might not be a stranger to Emily, he said. It's possible she knew him as a child, even if she doesn't remember. He might have been someone from her family's past, someone they tried to forget, but he didn't forget her. That idea disturbed Thomas more than anything else. If the man had been following Emily for years, then her whole life had been watched. Every moment, every step. He had been there in the shadows. Then came a break in the case. A camera at a gas station on a back road had picked up a car matching the one used to leave the wedding venue. The license plate was covered, but inside the car, they saw a man driving, and in the passenger seat, a woman who looked like Emily. She wasn't moving. Her head was tilted, and her eyes were closed. The photo was grainy, but it gave Thomas a cold, sick feeling. The police believed she might have been drugged. The car was heading toward the woods, far from the coast where the Honeymoon resort was. The area was full of small cabins and abandoned buildings. A search team was sent out right away. Helicopters, dogs, and dozens of officers swept through the area. They checked every road, every cabin, and every hiding place. Thomas joined the search too. He couldn't sit and wait anymore. He needed to find her with his own hands. He believed she was still alive. He had to believe it. As they reached the deeper parts of the woods, the trees grew taller and the roads became narrow and broken. It felt like stepping into a forgotten world. And somewhere in that silence, Thomas was sure Emily was waiting. The air in the forest was thick and quiet. The only sound were leaves crunching underfoot and distant birds calling through the trees. Thomas moved with determination, flashlight in hand, walking deeper into the woods alongside 2 officers. They had already searched 3 abandoned cabins, but each one had been empty, dusty floors, broken windows, and no sign of life. Still, something told Thomas not to give up. The gas station footage had shown that car heading this way. Emily had to be close. As they climbed a small hill, one of the officers pointed to a narrow path almost hidden by overgrown bushes. "Let's check this way," he said. They followed the path slowly, careful not to make too much noise. After about 20 minutes of walking, they saw it, a small wooden cabin at the edge of a clearing. It looked old and forgotten, with vines creeping up its sides and a rusted tin roof. But smoke was coming from the chimney. Someone was inside. The officers raised their hands, signaling Thomas to stay back. They moved carefully, circling the cabin. Thomas watched from the trees, his heart racing. Every second felt like an hour. Then one of the officers waved to him and whispered, "We saw someone inside. It looks like a woman sitting in a chair. We're going in." They opened the cabin door quietly and rushed in. Thomas waited, holding his breath. A few moments later, he heard shouting. Then one of the officers appeared in the doorway and waved him forward. "It's her. She's alive." Thomas ran as fast as he could. Inside the small, dim cabin, Emily was sitting in a wooden chair with her hands tied in front of her. She looked weak, tired, and scared, but her eyes lit up when she saw Thomas. "Thomas," she whispered, her voice barely there. He dropped to his knees and held her tightly as the officers cut the ropes and called for medical help. Emily leaned into him, shaking, but she was safe now. He had found her. The man in the blue suit had been there too. The police had caught him trying to escape through the back window. He didn't say a word. He didn't fight. He just stared blankly at the ground as they arrested him. Thomas looked at him once, but there was nothing left to say. That man had stolen days of his life, filled him with pain and fear, but he hadn't won. Emily was alive. Later, at the hospital, doctors confirmed that Emily had been drugged but was expected to recover fully. She had scratches and bruises, but no serious injuries. When she finally felt strong enough to speak, she told Thomas everything she remembered. The night before she disappeared, she had noticed a man watching her near the resort. She didn't think much of it at first, but in the early morning, she heard a knock at the door. When she opened it, she saw the same man. Before she could scream, he pushed something against her face, and everything went black. When she woke up, she was in the cabin. The man didn't speak to her much. He gave her food and water, but kept her tied up most of the time. She didn't know why he had taken her. He never explained, but she remembered his face from somewhere deep in her memory. A voice, a smell, something from when she was very young. She believed he might have known her family. Maybe he had been obsessed with her since she was a child. She didn't understand it completely, and maybe she never would. But she was grateful to be alive, and she was grateful that Thomas never gave up on her. After the man was taken into custody, the police discovered old records that connected him to several other missing person cases over the years. It was clear that he had lived in the shadows, watching people, planning, and hiding. His true identity was finally revealed. His name was not on any guest list because he had changed it many times. But justice had caught up with him at last. Emily and Thomas returned home weeks later, holding each other closer than ever. Their honeymoon had turned into a nightmare, but their love had survived it. The wedding photo, once a symbol of joy, had become the key to saving Emily's life. Now, framed and hanging in their living room, it reminded them every day of the danger that almost tore them apart, and the strength that brought them back together.